Hello, welcome to Inside the Birds Postgame Live. Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan here, of course, with Eagles Hall of Fame offensive tackle Trey Thomas. Well, fellas, something we mentioned in the pregame show today is it's not that hard to beat a team three times in a season. The Eagles had beaten the Giants twice. Some people were concerned that wouldn't be able to happen again. Well, Eagles 38, Giants 7 in the divisional round of the NFC playoffs. Eagles are one win away now from the Super Bowl, and they will host the NFC Championship game. There's a whole lot to unpack here, fellas. And Adam, I'll start with you because the only thing we said that would really, in our minds, take the Eagles and sort of make them on an even ground or close to an even ground with Giants is if Jalen Hurts was still so injured that he could not run and didn't throw well. Well, he showed that pretty early. He could run. That wasn't part of the game, and he threw the ball quite well.
Yeah, you had a really good note about just in terms of what you had heard their plan was for him in terms of being smart. There were a couple times he clearly could have gotten more yardage. He just went down, stayed out of harm's way. He also went out of bounds, but he still ran it 9 times, which was good. We said he had to do that to help them. He did, and he looked good. But the story of the game is from pillar to post. They never trailed. They got up big early. They came out with a shot play early. They threw it 5 times in the first series, ran it 3 times, and then they ran all over the Giants. And all 3 running backs looked really good. Boston Scott did it again, 11 touchdowns. It was a thing of this. It was just everything you could have asked for, pretty much. And Lane Johnson looked okay. You saw a couple shots of him limping a little bit, but from anything you could have wanted on the offensive side of football, they got the job done.
Yeah, Trey, I mean, I think some people worried about rust in general, having the bye, a couple of the injuries, whether it was Jalen, whether it was Lane. I mean, the team came out and sort of looked more like the Eagles that played the Giants the first time around than the season finale. So I imagine any concerns that people have had about this team can be a little bit eased. Obviously, they got a tough opponent ahead next week, whoever it is. But for now, that was a pretty dominant performance.
Absolutely. I thought that everybody came in prepared. You know, you got a week off to get a little bit more healthier, and then you allow this coaching staff just some time to self-diagnose this team, some self-scout, give some new wrinkles, see what they need to do, see what they need to correct. What else can they bring to the game plan? And, I mean, they answered the call. I mean, we were talking earlier that it's always harder to beat a team 3 times. Not this team. They just showed that this is a totally different organization, that this is totally different coaching staff and a group of guys that just came out here and just absolutely just dominated the New York Giants.
Let me ask you this, Trey, as a player who's played many playoff games, what is that first week like of preparation? Just forget preparation. I just mean the pressure was on the Eagles. The Giants were playing with house money. How do you think that made the players feel within the confines of the NovaCare complex throughout the week?
It made them go back and, just a lot of self-critique where you're watching film and you're like, okay, this is what's giving me problems. This is what I need to do. This is what I do well. So you're just trying to make sure that once you get to this game, that you're firing on all cylinders. So I think that this coaching staff did a really good job of making sure that these guys were ready, because they could have easily come out here and laid a dud. Having a bye week sometimes throws off timing, throws off aggression sometimes, but not this group. They came out there ready to go.
Yeah, Adam, choose a game week 1 through week 10. That's what this felt like. Just the way in the first half of the season they clicked on all. It wasn't an offensive win. It wasn't a defensive win. The special teams was actually pretty decent. So in general, it just felt like one of those back to basics Eagles. When we talked about the difference between the Eagles from week 1 to 10 or 11, and then after, this one was just a smooth operation.
Yeah, their offense dominated the first half. Hurts first 2 drives was 7 for 7 for 89 yards and 2 scores. The blocking was terrific. The tight ends blocked. In fact, Goddard blocked for a game-well first down. It was third and less than 2, and he walled him off. Great block there. 18 first downs in the first half. The Giants only had 3. It was an absolute annihilation offensively. Typical of what happens, you see this a lot. Like when a team's up so big at the half, they don't seem to have the energy or dominate as much in the second half. But the great thing is they did still run the ball really well in the second half. In fact, they ran for well over 200 yards. So this is just one of those games where they had it going offensively. As you said, it looked like it did in the first half of the season. Defensively, they seemed to play a lot of coverage. We'll get into that as we get through the show. But they were never really challenged. That's the interesting thing.
Right, right. And of course, because of that, we saw some historical precedent setting records, and some streaks come to an end and some streaks continue. And the biggest one is that the New York Giants, who, during your era, Trey, was a respectable foe for the Philadelphia Eagles. They have not won at the Link since 2013. And it won't be at least until next season, the 2023 season, that they get another shot. That's a decade, my friend. That's a long time to not be able to win at one of your division rivals' home. I mean, I don't know if that's in the head of the team, but that's a really, really long time.
Yeah, that's a very long time, and that's not something that, because teams are, guys come and go. I know it's the media bring it up. There's something to be said about it, but I know the guys aren't thinking about it. They're just trying to come in there and get a win. But that is a long time of just dominating a foe at home, and that's just impressive, and just shows you where this team is.
Yeah. All right, we got a lot to talk about, Trey. You mentioned some things, some wrinkles that I definitely noticed that I want to get into on offense. First, I want to remind everybody, check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. So let's get into that. Like, for example, and I imagine this is a part of the bye-week self-scouting, right, that we talk about. When you have time off, you go look at some things that you were doing well, some things you weren't doing well. I thought an interesting wrinkle that may have gone overlooked, but I think had a tangible impact on the game, was that Zach Pascal played a lot more slot reps in 11 personnel than Quez Watkins. And while he does not give you an explosive element like Quez, I thought his blocking was good. He had a nice little pick on the Goddard touchdown on the first drive. And then remember what we were saying about Quez was that for all the explosion, it seemed like over the last few weeks, a couple balls thrown his way, got picked off. Was he fighting hard through the route? I don't know if that was self-scout related or just something for this game, but it feels like that was an area where they felt that they could get some improvement.
Yeah, and then you have a bigger body receiver too. I think Pascal seems like he has a little bit more size on him. He doesn't have the speed as Quez, but he's a bigger body guy that when you run some of these, because I think when you go into this game plan knowing that, all right, we're not going to go out here and lean on Jalen Hurts too much. You want to be able to run the ball. You're going to need your receivers that's going to be physical and get some of those blocking plays down the field. So I think that Pascal definitely fits that mold.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that's something they look at more going forward. I mean, you're going to, whether it's San Francisco, Dallas, or whether it's the Super Bowl AFC, you're going to face some good pass rushers. And obviously Lane is going through that thing. So it's probably nice to have an extra guy out there who can block in the run game and be reliable when you do throw the ball to him. Do you think that was, I mean, this is the playoffs. You make mistakes, you go home. Do you think that factored into the decision at all?
Yeah, I think so as well, especially because Quez is more of your taking him over the top guy. He's not going to, Pascal's going to be more of your short yardage routes. He's not going to be the guy that's going to give you those 30, 40-yard bombs. Pascal's going to be the guy that's going to be your more intermediate routes that's going to be those short throws. So maybe you put him in that situation. Maybe this is just because of this game plan against the New York Giants. I mean, with this crew, with the way this coaching staff attacks, you never know what they're going to come out with week to week. And I think that's what keeps a lot of defenses on their heels.
Right. And Adam, we talked about in the pregame show that even though Wink Martindale has blitzed the Eagles a lot, his trend lately had been playing more zone. And I don't think he did blitz some today. He did. I don't think he was at his 50% clip like he was against the Eagles. So if the Eagles anticipated more zone, it also makes sense to then go with Pascal because you're not getting as many one-on-ones where Quez might help you a little bit more.
It seemed like, and we'll see what the snap counts look like tomorrow. It seemed like this is the most Pascal played. In fact, he was in there very early. He was in there to block. That's clear that why Watkins wasn't in there. And it worked. I mean, they ran the heck out of it. The double teams were great. Boy, do you notice how big the holes were? These were college holes for the guys to run through.
Yeah.
Usually they don't see holes like this. They made Dexter Lawrence look invisible. It was pretty amazing how well they did. And I got to tell you, Kenny Gainwell looked phenomenal. This is his best game as a freshman. I know he had over 100 yards, but without even looking at it, I just felt watching this game, he looked like he had a lot of juice. The time off really helped this team. And, I'd said in the pregame that really thought the bye would help the players not only get rest, as Avant talked about, but just a game plan. And they found some stuff here, and they exploited it. And they moved the Giants' defensive line off the football. That's really hard to do.
Yeah, and to your point, his 112 rushing yards, Kenneth Gainwell, is the most by an Eagles running back in the playoffs since Westbrook had 116, Brian Westbrook, in 2007. Wow.
Really?
That's 16 years ago. Yeah, they played a bunch of playoff games since then, including winning a Super Bowl. And the most they had since Westbrook's 2007 until today was 90 from LeGarrette Blount against the Patriots in a game you guys might remember. The Eagles won that 41-33. It was called the Super Bowl. But yeah, no 100-yard rushers since 2007 in the playoffs for the Eagles until Kenneth Gainwell there today. And then also his total, I think, is fifth most in the history of the organization. So there was Wilbert, there was 2 Westbrook, there was Donovan McNabb with 107. And now he just kicked Donovan down to 5, and he's 4th at 112. So very good game for Kenneth Gainwell. Adam, there was something that we were talking about on the podcast, sort of how would the Eagles come out attacking this Giants team, knowing that they're dealing with Lane Johnson's injury and Jalen coming back. And we tossed around the idea of, I mentioned, maybe you'll see more 12 personnel. And you said, well, they don't want to go away from the shot play either. And lo and behold, if you look at their first 2 series, they got shot plays and they played a lot of 12 personnel mixed with 11. So they kind of had the best of both worlds going on there. I thought that was another nice wrinkle that they showed for this game.
We'll see what the play count looks like. We'll be able to tell how much 12 they played. But I just like that one of the things this staff I really like is that typically when they see something that's really exploitable or it's happening, like the Green Bay game, okay? That game, they just annihilated Green Bay's run defense. In fact, they a lot of unblocked defenders, all sorts of stuff went on in that Green Bay game, but they saw it and they stuck with it. They had it going on. They blew the Giants D line off the ball so well. It was kind of interesting. I didn't expect that. After the first series, I was like, all right, well, it's typical what they do. They came out throwing. First series, they had the shot play. They mixed a couple runs in. But then they were so dominant, and the cool thing is all 3 of them did well. Gainwell and Sanders, by the way, combined for 202 on the ground. That's pretty amazing.
It is amazing. It is. And it sort of reminded me, they score on their first 2 possessions, then they punt, then they score touchdowns on their next 2. It was sort of like that first game where they jumped up 21-0. And you kind of knew at that point in both that game and this one, Trey, that it was over because the Giants just don't have the kind of firepower to be able to overcome a 21-0 deficit. Even when they scored their touchdown in the second half, it took 6.5 minutes off the clock. So there was no way they were going to be able to do that 3 more times and tie the game.
Yeah, I mean, New York Giants, they know what they are. They're a scrappy team that they need to be in the game in the fourth quarter for them to even have a chance. And once you're down 21-0 going into halftime, they're just trying not to get hurt. So you don't have to have surgery in the offseason. Let's just go ahead and just run. It's time to piss on the campfire. We're done. You know what I'm saying? This is it. So and this is where this team was. I mean, once you're down 21-0, they're just trying not to get hurt. Let's just kind of give us a little effort and get on out of here.
Yeah, I get a little. I did a little scouting when I was a kid. I was a little jittery about pissing on the campfire. You get a little too close. You know what I'm saying? It's not the fire. It's that layer of that white flame that you don't see or transparent.
Yeah.
You get a little too close. You start singeing areas you don't want to get into.
Yeah.
But I got your point though. I definitely dig it.
Yes.
So another wrinkle, which I think was really key at the time, just because it was a big play in the grand scheme of things, not so. But 3rd and 1, they get into their QB sneak look, and then bam, they pop a pitch outside wide to Kenny Gainwell, who has a first down. So again, that's another example of probably one of the curveballs that you mentioned that the Giants, unscouted looks, as the Giants would say.
Yeah. And I mean, Nick Sirianni and his guys, they get in there with their stuffed crust pizza, and and everybody's just hanging out, having a good time, and then there you go. You get to dream up some plays, and hey, there you go, man. I mean, stuff that no one has seen.
Trey's from Florida, so he probably likes stuffed crust pizza.
No, I don't do stuffed crust. I'm
good man.
I'm a thin crust guy, actually.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we just had a thin crust.
There you go. I see that. That's how I know you've been living in the Northeast real long time. Nice appreciation appreciation for it. Another overlooked thing, or maybe, in the grand scheme of things gets lost, Adam, but even with not just Pascal, but I thought wide receivers blocking on the perimeter was, in general, I thought the Eagles were an aggressive team. They were not a finesse team. They may look like it because they could throw the ball, but even in perimeter blocking, AJ Brown, who's been somewhat criticized sometimes for lack of effort on certain plays, but he was out there and he had a nice block on one of the touchdowns too, on the Devontae Smith bubble screen touchdown. Big part of the game plan today.
Yeah, Pascal was out there. They were 11 on the first play, and I'm looking at my notes here. I'm like, well, Pascal's out this early. Okay, we'll see what happens. And he was there, and you clearly see why Sirianni wants this guy here. He does the dirty work. In fact, that should be his nickname, Mr. Dirty Work. He does all of that, and he's, I know we know that they have a close relationship from their days with the Colts, and you clearly see. And the thing is, they don't really use him as a receiver. Rarely they do. Although I'd like to see him being used in the red zone, not just to block, but to be a red zone target, because this is what he did with the Colts. But overall, it's hard to complain. This is just a dominant performance. I'm sure they'll find some things, a couple breakdowns when they didn't score. But when you out first down a team 18-3 in the first half, I mean, what more can you say?
Yeah, and I tell you another thing that really where you just flex the muscle, and it's got to feel great, especially for a lineman, Trey. That third touchdown though was a 9-play drive that started off with 6 runs by Miles Sanders, 2 zone read keepers by Jalen Hurts, an RPO pass to Dallas Goedert, which, by the way, it looked like, just a pass to Goddard at the time. I'm almost positive that was supposed to be a run, but right late, McKinney snuck in the box there, and Jalen saw it, made the right key, pulled it back, threw to Goddard, and then, of course, they finished it off with, who else? A Boston Scott touchdown. But as a lineman, you got to love a 9-play, 65-yard drive with 8 runs in it, right? I mean, that's
absolutely, because that's what you want. I mean, this is showing total dominance. And that's what this offensive line was doing a really good job of, getting the running backs up to the second level. And that's when you can run the ball, that's when you're operating in Coach Stoutland's wheelhouse, man. I mean, that's one of the things that he does a really, really good job on, is just making sure that he gets his guys to the second level. And every run play is designed to get that running back to the safety. And when this offense can do that, man, there's no one that can stop them.
Indeed. Especially not the Giants. We tried to make people money, as we did last time they played the Giants and the first time they played the Giants. We tried to tell you, if you didn't take Boston Scott prop bet anytime scorer, you're literally saying, no, thank you. I don't want free money. That's the way it's you just decided you didn't want free money. We told you to take it. Third time, I feel like these guys were who have gambling companies. We're telling you to take it. It's an ezy bet. Call our hotline.
Counts. Yeah. Call a 900 number.
But it held true. He should go in the Giants Hall of Fame, I think.
It's funny, because his game was technically the 2 and Scott's the 3. Sirianni will never admit it, but there's no question in my mind he's aware of it, and he's like, why won't we just go with the luck? Because he didn't do it the first time. Gainwell came in inside the 10, which is his old role of sort of short yards and goal line, particularly goal line. But then you saw it, and then the next series, Scott came in and scored. It's kind of remarkable. There's no explanation for this. But he also looked good, by the way. He looked good. He had a 10-yard run. Gainwell to finish the game off. What a great block. And he's got much better long speed. We've known he's had it. He just hasn't shown it, but he looked good there. That's really good news when whoever they play, whether it's Dallas or the Niners here next Sunday, because they're going to need a run game at some point. And you got to be able to run when you need to run. That's the thing. You don't have to run, but you need to have it when you need to have it. And they had it tonight, and that was pretty important.
My favorite stat, and it always is that they dominated time of possession 35, almost 36 minutes to 24 minutes. That's again the Eagles from the first 10 weeks, when they just mix it up so well and tire you out. And I really did. I don't know if you guys noticed this. I thought the Giants got really tired early. There was a screen to Devontae Smith that he shouldn't have gotten first down on. He was sort of juggling it and falling forward. And there are 3 Giants there, and they just couldn't tackle him. And it looked like they didn't really make much of an effort. And I know that that's not a lackadaisical team. They didn't get there by doing that. I just thought that, Trey, that they were pretty exhausted by that point. Did you feel that?
Yeah, I think so too. And then I think during that play, I think the score was already 21-0. When we were playing, It's like when you're playing Madden back in the day. Once you beat 21-0, it's time to turn the game off. You know what I'm saying? So that's point. This team was just like, all right, man, we're trying not to get hurt. We're looking for a nice soft patch of grass that we can go and lay down in and just let this clock keep ticking.
Yes, that is true. All right, we'll finish off offense with this. I thought Jalen Hurts looked pretty good. I mean, if he's hurting on his shoulder, which I'm sure he's not 100%, but you saw him take a shot. He actually fumbled the ball there. He took a shot, but it's not like he didn't get right back up or throw. I thought there was good torque on his throws. He did play a little bit carefully, which is fine. That's what you want him to do, and that's what the team wanted him to do. He threw the ball out of bounds instead of trying to make something happen at times. But in general, I think you'd be encouraged, Adam, by what you saw from Jalen Hurts as far as going forward.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. The whole game was in the first half. I mean, I love the way he looked in the first 2 drives, 7 for 7, with the 2 scores. He threw the very crisp. Love the game plan. Clear out routes were terrific. The Eagles are the kings of the clear out routes. Some isolation routes. They just did a great job there. They ran for 141 in the first half. They were committed to doing it. It's funny. We've seen this season. They don't do it a lot anymore because they're such a pass heavy team. But when they seem to want to run and like, okay, it's working. We're going to stay with it. Trey, I got to ask you a question. Whenever it happened with Andy, it wasn't a lot, but when you guys would dominate the run game, is there like this confidence you go, oh, let's keep going. Do you say anything to the coaches?
No, you're just trying to just stay dialed into it. I really wasn't one that would go up to the coach and say, hey, we need to keep it going. You probably had some guys that would. Runyon probably would be that type of guy to go and do that. But, I think that you just want to, once they see that it's working, you want to keep pushing it. Now, one of the things about Jalen Hurts that I kind of, caught is that last 3rd and 2 where he kept it. It seemed like, he kind of got, it seemed like he felt it a little bit on that, because after that, he didn't keep it anymore after that. He just kept handling it off. Let me just get the ball out of my hands so that we can let my running backs do our thing. But, that was the only time that I felt like, all right, he may have felt his shoulder a little bit on that last 3rd and 2 where he kind of kept the ball.
There were a couple of times that we saw Lane earlier on sort of like wince or kind of put his hand near his midsection, but made it through the game, which is a huge thing. I know a lot of people were concerned about whether or not he'd be able to do that. Do you have a better feeling about him lasting? Listen, I mean, it's going to go from Kayvon Thibodeau to either Parsons or Nick Bosa, and then who else after that? We don't know, but that's a big jump and a challenge. Were you encouraged or just, I thought he was?
I thought he did well. I thought he did really well, and I think that the game plan helped him as well. So, when you know that you have a lineman that's not up to that may still be trying to recover, then now you run the ball and you throw some of those play actions in there, just to kind of keep the ball moving so that you don't put him in those 3rd and 10 situations where he has to sit back and punch a defensive end all the time. So I think that, just looking at the way he played with this game plan, it worked in his favor, and it gives him another week to get himself together.
There you go. We will see. And that's always something to monitor when you're dealing with that kind of injury. We have someone asking us about A.J. Brown and potentially being frustrated. So even though the Eagles romped, A.J. Brown, not necessarily a huge part of the passing game, 3 catches, 22 yards. His longest catch was 12 yards. Meanwhile, Goddard had 58. No one really feasted, right? I mean, Goddard 58, Smith 61. It was very spread out. Smith had 6 catches. Goddard had 5. Brown had 3. Did you guys detect anything from A.J. Brown that made you think he was a little bit?
I mean, he almost scored. He had the shot play, the post. I mean, he beat his man. If he would have scored there you go. Goddard almost had 2 touchdowns. No, I don't know. Maybe I couldn't even tell if he was hurt or not, because he fell to the ground, and I was like, is he mad or is he hurt or is he just? I don't know. It's hard to say. The media would have to ask him in the locker room, but you're just not going to get it done every play and every game. I don't think it's a big deal, to be honest with you. It's pretty much just talking to the Titans about him. He's a team guy.
Okay. Plus, I mean, you're always going to have some games like this, but I can't see the Eagles getting to where they want to go and winning a Super Bowl without AJ Brown having a big game somewhere along the way. I mean, Trey, I mean, he's their main weapon, right?
I mean, he's had big game after big game. So what, you were targeted 6 times in this game? All right, it'll be okay. It's coming back to you the next week. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Let's keep winning. You know, it's not the time to pout. You can pout after we win a Super Bowl. But
right.
You know, let's keep it moving.
There you go. It might be the first person in the history of the game to pout after winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, do that then.
All right. We're gonna take a pause real quick to hear from our friends at Rivers Sportsbook and Casino.
Game night for me is every night. At the place where I meet up with the guys, grab a cold one, and watch the big game on the big screen. So whether it's the money line, the pass line, or a parlay, I'm in it to win. This is my city, and this is my place.
All right, big thanks to our friends at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook out there on Delaware Ave, where Philly loves a winner, and of course, host of Inside the Birds pregame live. And again, we will be there next Sunday, 10 a.m. till 12 for Inside the Birds pregame live to preview the NFC Championship game featuring the Eagles, and we will find out after tomorrow who. All right, let's talk about this defense, because again, this was you can't say this is an offensive victory, a defensive victory. It was very synonymous, very harmonious, and the big matchup we talked about in favor of the Eagles was the right tackle Evan Neal. He's been struggling all year long. He's been struggling against the Eagles, especially one of the few starters for the Giants who played in the season finale and even struggled a little bit in that game. And you saw Haason Reddick kind of set the tone right from the start. 2 sacks. He had the 3rd down sack where he just clean beat Neal. And then the 4th down sack was on a stunt. So Adam, we talked about, again, you come out of the bye. It wasn't something different. They've stunted with him before, but it was nice that they were not stagnant, right? I mean, you get a sack from around edge. That's conventional. Then you don't come back with the same type of rush. You do something different, and the stunt. And Reddick's given this team all sorts of issues.
He hit Jones 3 times. He had 2 sacks on that one drive, but they took a half a sack and gave it to Sweat. By the way, Sweat had a sack and a half. He's healthy. He looked great. He had 2 hits on Jones. That's great to see. And also give Bradbury credit for the pick. He read Daniel Jones's eyes the entire way. That was really good. They played a coverage base. They didn't blitz very much. Stunts, they don't stun a lot, but they have a very high success rate on stunts, which is very, very important.
Right. And then to piggyback off that, they did not blitz much, but that Bradbury interception did come on a blitz with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So I know people kind of get on Gannon, so this is another example, Trey, that we've talked about where he was selectively aggressive with his blitz, and that was the perfect time that he threw it. And of course, it helps. They were up 14-0, but play like that helps turn the tables. And Bradbury did a great job just reading it and jumping right in front.
Yeah, I mean, this team. Everybody gets on Gannon, and I know he's a low-hanging fruit. Everybody, oh man, I want him to be a little bit more aggressive, do this, do that. But I mean, when you have a front that can get after it without blitzing, why? I know everybody just wants to see the blitz. I want to see the blitz, even if you get burned off of it. I still want to see it, but why? If you got a secondary that can go out there and you can play coverage and you can let your forward go out there and eat, let them eat. I mean, one of the things that they're doing a really good job at, and I mean, when it comes to just the 4 or 5 that are rushing and when they run stunts, for the stunts to work, your defensive tackle has to be extremely disciplined because he's the one that has to take on the guard. And you've seen so many times where whoever that 3 technique is rushes upfield, occupies the guard, ties up the tackle, and then now you got Reddick or Sweat coming right down the middle of the field with no one there to block. And I mean, these guys are running it to perfection. I think that they've been doing a really good job with their stunts. Also, when you can let the 4 go ahead and run. And now having Josh Sweat come back also helps Reddick because you have a true edge rusher that's going to get upfield, which allows for Reddick to go upfield, work back inside, work his spin move. I think having Josh Sweat back out there really helps him.
Yeah, absolutely. When Adam and I are sort of in agreement, as much as the sacks pile up for Haason Reddick, and he's been a great find. I think we feel that Josh Sweat is really the most valuable guy that they have up front because he does so many things really well. He's not a one-trick pony at all. He defends the run, pass rushes, and he makes things happen for other players because of what he does.
Yeah, he sets the edge. I'm talking to Eagles about him. He's one of the best players to set the edge. BG does a great job of that. BG, by the way, another sack. Another important stat is they had 6 passes defense, which means they were reading coverage very well. They were reading their keys well. They're in the right spot. Boy, Reed Blankenship, he was in early. He played a ton. Now, I know that they played a lot of nickel because they got up big and early. So obviously he's probably going to play more, and Gardner Johnson was in the slot. But that was an impressive game, pretty much overall. Trey's right. As much as we might want a blitz here or there, when you don't have to give up coverage, this is the big thing with Jim Schwartz. He hated the blitz with the wide 9, but they're actually deeper now than they've ever really been, quite frankly. They have such a great rotation. Guys are not getting tired. Jeff, you mentioned the time of possession. That really helps them.
Big time.
And don't forget, they get an extra day off the scout because they played Saturday, not Sunday, so they get an extra day to prepare. And again, they don't have to travel. Everything's setting up really, really well for the Eagles here.
Yeah, and that marriage you're talking about between the front end and the back end was definitely there. Some of those sacks were coverage sacks. You saw Daniel Jones, he had a drift around the pot. He took one of the worst sacks I've ever seen when he drifted all the way to the sideline. This is in the second half, and he let Fletcher Cox push him out of bounds. Was it Fletcher? I think it was Fletcher. Somebody got
that's Fletcher.
It was,
yeah. When he could have just thrown it out of bounds. That's how you know like a guy's really frustrated and pressing. But also, Trey, it's how you know that the coverage was really good all game and allowed that front 4 to eat.
Yeah, man. Johnson said it. Moose Johnson said it during the broadcast. Whenever you sit up there and you see a team that has all of these sacks, the first thing you should think about is, man, how good is that secondary? Because it goes hand in hand. To me, I always say, if you have a team that has a lot of sacks, that secondary is an animal. So, and that's one of the things that you see with our team. Our secondary is second to none out there on that team, and that's why we were able to finish the season with 70 sacks.
Yeah, and this was sort of like my answer to some people throughout the week who were saying that the Giants could pull this one off and score points because Gannon plays the same type of soft coverage that Ed Donatell's been playing with the Vikings. And I would say, well, maybe so, but look at their personnel compared to the Eagles personnel. So you can't compare because the Eagles can play coverage if they want because they have guys that can actually cover, and that helps the front 4 rush. And you saw that. Now, it might be a totally different story once you start moving up in the rounds and you're facing better offensive lines, better quarterbacks. But I thought the plan for today worked well. And Bradbury had a really good guy. I tell you, he made another play. It was a 3rd and long. You guys might remember it.
That ball was short though. The ball hung up in the air. He did.
But that guy, the receiver, it was at Hodgins, right? He was completely uncovered, right? It was a bait job by Jonathan Gannon. He was completely uncovered at the last second. I think it was Quinn, one of the edge defenders, dropped back to try to cover him short of the sticks. But Hodgins still beat him. But Bradbury came and laid a hit on him at the catch point. That forced him to juggle it and be short of the sticks. That was just a good, well-designed plan right there that didn't have to involve a blitz. It was just disguise, deception, and then, of course, Bradbury making a big hit. What a find he's been.
Their coverage was terrific. And, it's funny with Bradbury, the Giants, they just didn't think he fit their scheme. They had no – in fact, they made a decision like immediately when the staff came in because all the man coverage they play, he couldn't play in man. And we know the Eagles are heavy zone with a man occasionally. They'll play man and nickel every once in a while. But the fact of the matter is, the coverage tonight was great. Trey's right. When you're getting constant 4-man pressure, Jones was bamboozled. He had no idea. It's amazing he only turned the ball over once. The old Daniel Jones probably would have had 4 or 5 turnovers. But they hit him. They cut off their lanes. And this is a game where the Giants playing 3 backup receivers heavy minutes. They're basically all starters now. It really showed, though. They did give up it would have been a big play. They had a busted coverage against Richie James. That should have been a touchdown.
Right.
And so that was bad. Jones, how do you overthrow him? The guy's wide open. That was pretty bad.
I didn't even think it was that overthrown. The ball hit him in the hand, right? He should have caught it. I thought it was more on the receiver personally, but I mean, the ball could have been better placed, but he reached his hand out and it bounced off it. I mean, I feel like any Eagles receiver would have caught that ball. But, that again shows you the difference in 53-man rosters between the teams.
Oh, hell yeah.
I wanted to ask Trey real quick about the other big play that I think was a breakdown as far as keys. The Saquon Barkley 39-yard run. Was that a gap integrity issue there? Because he ran straight up the middle, and it looks like the safeties came out to the B instead of the A. What was going on?
Yeah, you had some guys, and that's what happens sometimes where you guys start guessing, and you're like, all right, I see a hole there, and you try to hit it, and then the running back, he's making plays as well. So, and like I said before, every run play is designed to get that running back to the safety. And if that linebacker, if a defensive lineman takes whatever gap he's supposed to, but the linebacker kind of overplays it, then there's no one else except for the safety, and then now you just hoping that someone can bring him down.
Right. Okay. Well, those are about the only two plays that we can think of: the Barkley run and the almost catch by Richie James that really threatened the Eagles defense. Other than that, pretty good, and they'll try to carry that over next week into the NFC Championship game. Let's take a break real quick. Just a moment pause to hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
In Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right. Big thanks to our friends at Sky Motor Cars. If you hop in and see them out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. You will get a great deal. Well, a streak did come to an end, something we discussed. I don't know how many people knew about this unbelievable streak. Trey, I don't know if you knew about it. The Giants had won their last 6 games since 1990 in the playoffs against number 1 seeds. They're 6-0 until today from 1990 against number 1 seeds. That streak is over, and it got torn up pretty quickly and pretty easily. I want to look ahead, though. You got Dallas and San Francisco. Either way, Eagles are in the NFC Championship. How much better of a overall do they have to be? Or are they still the aggressor and someone's got to come here and beat them?
I think someone has to come here and beat them. I think that this team is extremely confident. I think that this coaching staff is going to do what they got to do to get this group together. But I think that just being home, it gives you an extra day of rest. Being home really helps this group here, and then the fans is just going to be crazy, man, no matter who they play.
Yeah. Any preference on your part as far as who you think that the matchups favor?
You know what? Just the player in me, I would love to see Dallas again. You know what I'm saying? Just to go ahead and get Dallas again. But I think the 49ers, if you want to see a really good game, I think the 49ers will be the team that would really test this group. Because I think they'll run all over the Dallas Cowboys, because they're having offensive line problems as well. Not really sure if Peters is going to be able to hang in there or not, which, by the way, man, he was looking pretty good until he tapped out. He was playing pretty well.
The Bears think he played pretty well last year for them. That's why he keeps getting
was hanging in there, man. I'm like, dang, JP. But anyway, I think that, I just would like to see Dallas, but I think, you're going to have your hands full with the 49ers. But, I think that this team will rise to the occasion.
JP was trying real hard to be that Andrew Whitworth, be in your 40s, win a Super Bowl, and then retire. Because, he wasn't on the field when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I feel like that may nag at him a little bit. He wants to be on the field and playing for a Super Bowl champion. Yeah.
Absolutely.
He just turned 41. He's got a hip injury. He's out this week, and that would be, if they do play him, it doesn't sound good for him to play next week either. They've made a lot of offensive line changes. For the Bucs game, they made 3. They're having 2 more in this game tomorrow. Oh boy, we'll see. I would expect the Niners to win that game. I'm with Trey. If you really want to see the most competitive game, 2 best teams, two out of the best 3 teams in the National Football League here. I'd love to see the Niners come in here. This thing would be a great game, great chess match between 2 great staffs. And then Dallas, of course, they're so Jekyll and Hyde. You never know what you're going to get. And I love the fans always say, that's Dallas being Dallas. They're going to implode. You know, they're going to implode. Maybe so.
That's right. Well, I know this. At least one more game, an NFC Championship game with the Eagles in it, means there's going to be one more Inside the Birds post-game live.
Right. Can't wait.
So we will have you all covered next week, probably around 6:15, 6:30, if the game is nice and quickly and efficient. And we'll be here. It'll be myself. It'll be Adam Caplan. It'll be Trey Thomas. And, of course, leading up to the game, we'll have Inside the Birds pregame live as well. So that's going to do it for this edition of Inside the Birds postgame live. We thank everybody for watching. For Trey Thomas and Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.